Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Do you grasp the immense power encoded in this command? Within the architecture of Scripture, God embedded precise instructions on how to use your mind to create, transform, and attract everything that is good, pure, and prosperous. Romans 12:2 reveals that the miracles everyone seeks don't start externally. They are birthed within the mind. And here lies one of the greatest secrets. The power to change anything resides in renewing your thinking, in cleansing the old and making room for the new. Most people want to change their lives, but they persist with the same mind that created the problems they face. They desire prosperity, but their thoughts are still rooted in lack. They want a new future, but they cannot release the past. The Bible isn't speaking of religion, it's speaking of mindset. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It is a psychological and spiritual command. It's as if it says, as long as your mind is old, your life will be old. You choose what you plant, doubt or faith, scarcity or abundance, fear or courage, and the soil of your mind is incredibly fertile. Everything you sow will grow. Are you ready to change? Because the first step is to understand that the world you live in today is the exact reflection of the world that exists inside your mind. And God has given you the capacity to shape that inner world. You only need to learn how to use the power He placed within you. Now, imagine what would happen if you started to think differently. If you fed your mind with faith, focus, and purpose, what exactly would you be capable of attracting? Everything you experience today began as a thought. Before it existed in the world, it existed in your mind. This is why the second verse that reveals the hidden mental power in the Scriptures is one of the most direct in the entire Bible. For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. Do you understand what this means? The Bible is saying that you become what you contemplate. If your mind believes you are limited, you will act as a limited person. If your mind believes you are weak, your decisions will be weak. But if within you exists the certainty that you were created in the image of God with power, wisdom, and purpose, then everything around you begins to shift to align with that belief. Your mind is an invisible bridge between the spiritual and the physical realms. Everything you reflect within it, sooner or later, manifests on the outside. This is why faith begins in the mind, because thinking is the first act of creation. When God created the world, He first conceived it, and then He spoke. The Word only had power because it was born from a divine idea. In the same way, every word you speak, every action you take, is born from a thought you have nurtured. What you think, you become. And here is what almost no one understands. The enemy doesn't need to stop you. He only needs to make you doubt. If he can steal the focus of your mind, he has already won. Because the body always follows where the mind believes. Therefore, the battlefield is not the world, it is the mind. The victory you seek begins when you choose what you will allow to grow inside you. Doubt is a seed. Faith is also a seed. The soil decides the future. You are not trapped by your circumstances, you are trapped by the thoughts you feed about them. Change the thought and you change the reality. And this is exactly what another powerful verse reveals, that the mind is the place where peace, power, and prosperity are born. But few realize the secret lies in keeping it steadfast, even when everything collapses. Pay close attention to me now, because the next secret is one of the most powerful in the Bible. It is in Isaiah 26:3. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. This is the key that few perceive. Peace does not come from the outside, it emanates from within. The steadfast mind is the mind in equilibrium. It is the mind that refuses to be dominated by fear, anxiety, or the voices of chaos. It is the mind that has learned to trust. The word steadfast comes from the idea of stability, of a deep root. God is saying, if your mind is anchored in truth, the world can fall apart and you will still remain in peace. Most people try to fix their lives before they fix their minds. They want to change circumstances without changing the core of their consciousness. But peace is not the result of the absence of problems. It is the result of a mind trained to trust, even when all seems lost. And this is where the power of focus enters. The mind that learns to remain focused on something greater than fear becomes victorious. This is why people with genuine faith seem unshakable. They don't have fewer problems. They have a disciplined mind. They know that as long as the mind remains steadfast in God, in the divine purpose, chaos has no power to dominate them. The Bible isn't saying that God gives you peace. It says that He keeps you in peace. And to keep is to preserve, to maintain. That is, when the mind is connected to that which is eternal, it does not get lost in that which is temporary. The secret here is simple and revolutionary. The mind that trusts creates stability. When you align with this principle, peace ceases to be a wish and becomes a state of being. The storm may roar on the outside, but inside you reigns the calm of one who has understood that the power to create peace begins in thought.
And when you live in this state, your way of seeing the world changes. What was once an obstacle becomes a lesson. What was once fear becomes movement, because the steadfast mind does not run, it transforms. This is why the next verse reveals the secret of inner strength, the one that transforms fear into power, weakness into courage, and doubt into clarity. Pay close attention to me now, because what I will reveal to you is more than a verse. It is a spiritual key to unlock prosperity in every area of your life. Most people read the Bible only as a book of faith, but those who read with attention perceive it. It is also a manual for mindset. And perhaps no verse shows this as clearly as Joshua 1:8, where it is written, "Keep this book of the law always on your lips, meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful." Now imagine this with me. God is about to place Joshua in charge of a promised land, a territory of abundance. But before giving him wealth, God gives a mental command: meditate on it day and night. God is not saying work harder, force more, or accumulate more. He is saying think better, think consistently, think spiritually, because prosperity, before it is material, is mental. The secret to attracting what you desire lies in keeping your mind aligned with the right purpose. You can have the tools, the talent, and the faith, but if your mind is unstable, your path will be too. God is telling Joshua that his mind must remain immersed in wisdom, because only a disciplined mind is capable of attracting and sustaining prosperity. And this is the error of many. They want abundance, but they have a distracted, agitated, confused mind. They think of greatness in the morning and of scarcity at night. And the universe responds to what is constant, not to what is momentary. This is why God says, meditate day and night. This is spiritual reprogramming. When you meditate on something with frequency, the thought ceases to be an idea and becomes a core belief. And what you believe deeply inevitably manifests. The prosperous mind is the one that refuses to yield to the fear of lack. It focuses on the seed, not on the absence of the fruit. And the more you maintain,
And when you live in this state, your way of seeing the world changes. What was once an obstacle becomes a lesson. What was once fear becomes movement. Because the steadfast mind does not run, it transforms. This is why the next verse reveals the secret of inner strength, the one that transforms fear into power, weakness into courage, and doubt into clarity. Pay close attention to me now, because what I will reveal to you is more than a verse. It is a spiritual key to unlock prosperity in every area of your life. Most people read the Bible only as a book of faith, but those who read with attention perceive it. It is also a manual for mindset. And perhaps no verse shows this as clearly as Joshua 1:8, where it is written, "Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful." Now imagine this with me. God is about to place Joshua in charge of a promised land, a territory of abundance. But before giving him wealth, God gives a mental command: meditate on it day and night. God is not saying work harder, force more, or accumulate more. He is saying think better, think consistently, think spiritually, because prosperity, before it is material, is mental. The secret to attracting what you desire lies in keeping your mind aligned with the right purpose. You can have the tools, the talent, and the faith, but if your mind is unstable, your path will be too. God is telling Joshua that his mind must remain immersed in wisdom, because only a disciplined mind is capable of attracting and sustaining prosperity. And this is the error of many. They want abundance, but they have a distracted, agitated, confused mind. They think of greatness in the morning and of scarcity at night. And the universe responds to what is constant, not to what is momentary. This is why God says, meditate day and night. This is spiritual reprogramming. When you meditate on something with frequency, the thought ceases to be an idea and becomes a core belief. And what you believe deeply inevitably manifests. The prosperous mind is the one that refuses to yield to the fear of lack. It focuses on the seed, not on the absence of the fruit. And the more you maintain thoughts of abundance, the more abundance begins to recognize you as a natural channel for divine provision. But here comes the most important part. Biblical meditation is not just thinking, it is living what you think. It is making the word a habit, an action, a mode of existence. God is saying, meditate so that you may be careful to do. In other words, first you feed the mind, then you act with wisdom. True prosperity is not about chasing after things. It is about attracting through the correct mental state. This is why you need to understand. All wealth is born first in thought. Are you ready to change your mental pattern and allow God to teach you to think like a prosperous person? Because the next secret I will show you reveals what must be protected before any wealth: the heart, the center of the mind. Pay close attention to me now, because what I am about to tell you can completely change the way you view life. There is a truth hidden in this verse that many read but few truly comprehend. It is written in 2 Timothy 1:7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." Fear does not come from God. Doubt does not come from God. Anxiety does not come from God. All these are reflections of a mind disconnected from its origin. God created you to govern, not to cower. He gave you dominion, not cowardice. And when Paul writes this to Timothy, he is saying, remember who formed you. Remember the spirit that dwells in you. Because the truth is this: fear is what happens when you forget who you are. Faith is what happens when you remember. The unshakable mind is born when you understand that fear and faith cannot occupy the same space. One expels the other. Fear is the belief in the worst. Faith is the belief in the best. And what you believe, you create. This is why the verse doesn't end with "do not be afraid." It goes further. It says, God has given you power, love, and a sound mind. Power to act, love to bring balance, and a sound mind to choose which voice will command your thoughts. The sound mind is not one that doesn't feel fear.
It is the mind that masters it. It is the mind that understands that courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. When God created you, He breathed into you a spirit that does not bend before the impossible. But over time, you have listened to the voices of the world, the voices that say, "It can't be done, you're not capable, it's too risky." And little by little, fear took up the space that belonged to faith. But now is the time to take back control. God did not give you a spirit of fear, so where does it come from? It comes from doubt, from the habit of thinking small, from a lack of trust in the one who created you. And the unshakable mind is born when you decide to replace fear with focus, doubt with decision, and hesitation with action. Fear paralyzes, faith mobilizes, fear limits, faith expands. This is why a mind of power is a mind that decides to act even while trembling, because the secret is not in not feeling fear, but in not letting fear dominate you. Now, what you are about to hear may forever change the way you understand faith.
Jesus said in Mark 9:23, "Everything is possible for one who believes." Not almost everything, not some things, but everything. And the most striking thing is that He was not speaking only of spiritual faith. He was speaking of the power of the human mind when aligned with divine truth. Faith is not a feeling, it is a mental state. It is the inner certainty that reprograms the impossible. When you truly believe, your brain changes, your body responds, and the universe adjusts to transform belief into reality. Faith is the science of thinking as if the miracle has already happened. It is the language of creation. God created the world by the Word, but the Word was born first in thought. And when Jesus says, "Everything is possible for one who believes," He is teaching you a principle. What you believe deeply manifests naturally. Faith is not waiting for the miracle. It is acting as if it is already part of your life. Doubt prays asking, but faith gives thanks for having already received. And it is there that the impossible begins to move. The mind that believes does not ask for signs, it creates signs. It begins to perceive opportunities where it once saw obstacles, doors where it once saw walls. When you change the vibration of your mind, reality responds, because God manifests Himself in the mind that truly trusts. Faith is the energy that opens invisible paths. But it only works when you believe without reservation, without a plan B, without looking back. When you say, "I believe," the universe understands it is done. And this is why Jesus did not say, "Wait for it to happen." He said, "Let it be done according to your faith." He was saying the power is in the way you think. So the question is, what has your mind been creating lately? Fear or miracles? Because what you feed internally is what flourishes externally. Faith is a thought repeated with such conviction that the world has no choice but to bow to it. Now close your eyes for a moment and say to yourself, "I believe. The new miracle has already begun within me." And if this message has truly touched you, right here in the comments, "The new miracle is already happening in me." Write it with faith. Write it with conviction. Because when you declare, heaven confirms. Pay close attention to me now, because what I am about to tell you is what separates those who conquer their own mind from those who spend their lives being enslaved by it. It is written in 2 Corinthians 10:5, "We take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ." Do you understand what this means? The Bible is showing you that the greatest war you will face in life is not external. It is internal. It is not against people. It is against thoughts. It is not against the world. It is against the voices inside your head. And Paul is saying, take every thought captive. That is, do not let your mind dominate you. You must dominate your mind. The enemy does not need to knock you down if he can make you doubt yourself. This is how spiritual warfare begins. A negative thought enters, and you believe it's yours. But not every thought that comes to you belongs to you. Thoughts are like arrows. Some come from faith, others from fear. And you choose which ones you allow to stay. When Paul speaks of taking captive, he is teaching you a powerful weapon to filter your mind, to learn to identify what comes from the light and what comes from darkness. Fear says, you will not make it. Faith responds, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Discouragement says, you are alone. Truth responds, God never abandons me. This is how you win the mental war, by replacing lies with promises. The mind is the field where the enemy tries to plant chaos, but it is also the altar where God plants wisdom. And what grows depends on whom you feed. If you repeat thoughts of defeat, your brain will begin to believe that defeat is normal. But if you decide to think like a victor, even when everything seems contrary, your spirit strengthens, your body responds, and your energy changes. Every thought you do not master masters you. Every thought you do not confront molds you. This is why the verse says, take captive, because you do not negotiate with thoughts, you discipline them. You decide what stays and what goes. The secret is to understand that mental control is a spiritual act. Faith is the mind in its purest state, and fear is the mind without direction. So ask yourself now, who has been commanding my thoughts? Because your life will always follow the voice you listen to most. Pay close attention to me now, because what I will reveal to you is the highest level a human mind can reach. It is written in 1 Corinthians 2:16, but we have the mind of Christ. This is one of the most powerful declarations in the entire Bible, and also one of the least understood. Paul is not saying that one day you will have the mind of Christ. He is saying that you already have it, but you need to learn to access it. This means that within you exists a divine consciousness, a spiritual wisdom that sees beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond human limitations. To have the mind of Christ is to think with clarity, with purpose, with love. It is to see situations not as a problem, but as part of a plan. It is to think with faith when everything seems to be falling apart.
Christ did not react to chaos. He reorganized it with words and presence. And that is what happens when you awaken this mind within yourself. You stop acting on impulse and begin to act with intention. The mind of Christ is calm in the middle of the storm, steadfast in the face of injustice, and confident in the impossible. It is the mind that does not get lost in negative thoughts because it is anchored in truth, and the truth sets you free. When Paul says that we have this mind, he is reminding you of a forgotten power, the capacity to think as God thinks, not in the sense of controlling the world, but of comprehending the world. When you access this frequency, fear loses its voice, the ego loses its strength, and love gains dominion. It is as if every thought passes through a filter of divine wisdom, and only what is true, noble, and pure remains. This is the state of consciousness of one who lives in alignment with purpose. To have the mind of Christ is to see beyond appearance and perceive what is essential. It is to speak less from impulse and more from direction. It is to act not to prove something, but to serve. It is to think with purpose and feel with compassion. And the more you feed this mind, the more your life transforms. The same situations may exist, but now you see them with the eyes of one who understands the meaning behind them. The mind of Christ is the mind that does not just react to the world, it recreates it. Pay close attention to me now, because what I am about to tell you can completely transform the way you think and consequently everything you attract. It is written in Philippians 4:8, "Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." This is much more than spiritual advice. It is a mental law. Paul is saying, what occupies your mind commands your life. What you repeat becomes a habit. What you focus on grows. The mind is like a radio, and you decide which frequency to tune into: scarcity or abundance, fear or faith, anger or gratitude. When you choose gratitude, you change the vibration of your mind. And when the mind changes, reality responds. Gratitude is the language of prosperity because it tells the universe, I already recognize what I have, and therefore I am ready to receive more. Grateful people do not live in lack. They live in fullness. They do not deny difficulties, but they choose to see what still flourishes in the midst of pain. This is why gratitude is the antidote to fear, anxiety, and scarcity. It takes the focus off what is lacking and directs it to what already is. The mind that practices gratitude becomes a magnet for good, because gratitude is faith in action. It is saying, even if I do not see it, I believe. Even if I do not have it yet, I am grateful. This is spiritual power. The Bible does not say, wait to be happy to give thanks. It says, give thanks to be happy. Gratitude reorganizes your interior. When you give thanks, your brain releases serotonin and dopamine, and your entire body enters into harmony. It is as if every cell begins to vibrate on a new frequency, and everything around you aligns with that vibration. This is why God calls you to think about what is true, noble, and lovely. Not because He wants to distract you from problems, but because He knows that you can only create what you think about continually. Gratitude does not ignore pain, but it prevents pain from dominating you. And the more you give thanks, the more reasons you have to continue giving thanks. So answer me now. What has been occupying your mind? Because if fear occupies it, it creates. But if gratitude occupies it, it transforms. Pay close attention to me now, because what I am about to tell you can completely change how you deal with the chaos of life. It is written in Isaiah 26:3, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." See, God is not promising the absence of problems. He is promising the presence of peace. The difference between those who collapse and those who remain standing is not in the size of the storm, but in the steadfastness of the mind. The steadfast mind is the one that does not get lost in emotions, does not surrender to fear, does not bow to doubt. It is the mind that trusts even when it doesn't understand. When Isaiah says, "Whose mind is steadfast in you," he is revealing a spiritual secret. Peace is not something you find, it is something you build, and it is born from mental constancy. Most people seek peace by changing what is outside, but true peace comes when you learn to control what is inside. God did not say, "I will give you peace when everything is resolved." He said, "I will keep in peace the one whose mind is steadfast." This means that your mind is the place where the Spirit builds refuges, and what you think repeatedly becomes the climate of your soul. If your mind is unstable, your heart lives in turmoil. But when you choose to focus on what is eternal, the temporary loses its power to unbalance you. A steadfast mind is like a spiritual anchor. The sea may rage, the wind may blow, but it doesn't move. Trust is the root of stability. And to trust is not to pretend everything is fine. It is to believe that God is still in control even when nothing seems to make sense. The secret is this: the world changes, circumstances change, but His presence does not change.
And when your mind leans on this truth, chaos loses its power to dominate you. Peace is not the absence of war, it is interior dominion. It is when you learn to take a deep breath, silence the internal noise, and say, "Nothing will take me from my center, because my center is God." When the mind becomes steadfast, the soul becomes light, because it is not the noise from outside that destroys you, it is the noise from inside that you have not learned to quiet. This is why Isaiah uses the word keep, because peace is not something you win, it is something you maintain. You build it, you care for it, you protect it. And every time fear tries to take space, you return your thoughts to the source. Peace is focus. Peace is discipline. Peace is faith in the form of silence. Pay close attention to me now, because the verse I am about to reveal carries one of the deepest secrets about the human mind and the power of faith. It is written in Proverbs 23:7, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he." This is not just ancient wisdom, it is divine psychology. The Bible is saying that you are the exact reflection of what you think continually. What inhabits your mind becomes the mold of your life. If your thoughts are of fear, your life fills with uncertainty. If your thoughts are of faith, your life moves toward miracles. The mind is the spiritual ground where you plant your reality. And here is what almost no one understands. What you plant in silence, you harvest in the form of destiny. Every thought is a seed, and every seed, when watered with emotion and repetition, grows. What you think, you create. What you believe, you attract. What you doubt, you repel. This is why the wise man wrote, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he." Because what you imagine is not fantasy, it is the beginning of creation. When you imagine something with faith, your brain begins to act as if it were already true. God gave you this power. The power to create worlds with thoughts and to transform your mind into the garden of abundance or the desert of scarcity. The choice is yours. Your life is not what happens to you, it is what happens in you. Circumstances are reflections of convictions, and the secret lies in learning to choose what will flourish inside your soul. If you want to change the exterior, change the interior first, because everything that is real was born before, invisible, in someone's mind. Thoughts are silent prayers, and every time you think with faith, heaven hears. God gave you the capacity to think like Him, to create, to imagine, to expand, to love, to transform. But it is you who decides if you will use this gift to build or to destroy. If your mind is the garden, tend to what grows there. Uproot the weeds of doubt, water the seeds of hope, and wait patiently for the time of harvest. Because everything cultivated with faith flourishes, and everything planted with fear withers. So look well within and ask, what have I been sowing in myself? Remember, you become what you think about every day. Want a better life? Start by changing what you repeat inside your mind. Want prosperity? Think abundance. Want peace? Think equilibrium. Want love? Think service. Because whoever plants greatness inevitably harvests purpose. And if this message has spoken to you, it is because God is calling you to tend to your mind as the sacred soil of your life.
Like this post now because it reminded you of your inner power. Follow the channel to continue learning how to shape your reality through faith and a biblical mindset. And tell me in the comments with faith and conviction, starting today, I choose to plant thoughts of victory. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next messages, because a transformed mind is the first step to an extraordinary destiny.